Hello, as we read Psalm 78. When God heard them, he was very angry. He rejected Israel completely. He abandoned the tabernacle of Shiloh, the tent he had set up among men. He sent the ark of the mighty into captivity, his splendor in the hands of the enemy, gave his people over to the sword. He was very angry with his inheritance. Fire consumed their young men, and the maidens had no wedding songs. The priests were put to the sword, and their widows could not weep. Yeah, verses 59, 64. Take note about the battle dates. I'll come back to it in a moment. Then the Lord awoke us from sleep, as a man wakes from some stupor of wine. He beat down his enemies. He put them to everlasting shame. They ejected the tents of Joseph. He did not choose the tribe of Ephraim, but he chose the tribe of Judah, Mount Zion, which he loved. He built his sanctuary like the heights, like the earth that he established forever. He chose David, his servant, and took him from the sheep pens. From tending the sheep he brought him to the shepherd of his people Jacob, of Israel his inheritance. And David shepherded them with integrity of heart. With skillful hands he led them. Wow, that's covered a lot of history there. So, remember in verses 59 and 64. Let's read that again and think about that. When God heard them, he was very angry. He rejected Israel completely. He abandoned the tabernacle of Shiloh, the tent he set up among men. He set the ark of his might into captivity, his splendor into the hands of the enemy. He gave his people over to the sword. He was very angry with his inheritance. Fire consumed their young men, and their maidens have no wedding songs. Their priests were put to the sword, and their widows could not weep. Those are the bad old days. From the time they entered the promised land to the time when Saul was named their first king, Israelites had no central government. Instead, they were governed by judges. Colorful volunteer leaders like Deborah, as a female, Gideon, and Samson. Even today, there are people called Deborah and Gideon. I haven't met anyone named Samson, but Israel has few nostalgic memories of those days. Psalm 78 portrays them as a time when Israel abandoned God and God rejected Israel. These verses 59 and 64 draw from the events described in 1 Samuel 4. So, yeah, you can go read it yourself, or I can read that to you. But in that time, imagine. That means Israel has left their belief of God, so they feel separated. So many of the Israelites at this point were held captive by their enemies. A lot of the young men has disappeared. I'm not sure, actual fire or something. But let's go to 1 Samuel 4 to find out. A lot of young women were not able to get married because a lot of young men has disappeared at this point. The priests were killed off by sword, I guess. The enemies and the widows are so full of shock they can't cry or weep anymore because it's too much, right? Let's go to 1 Samuel 4. The Philistines captured the ark. Now the Israelites went out to fight against the Philistines. The Israelites camped at Ebenezer, and the Philistines at Aphek. The Philistines deployed the forces to meet Israel, and as the battle spread, Israel was defeated by the Philistines, who killed about 4,000 of them on the battlefield. So that means a lot of young men died on that battlefield. When the soldiers returned to camp, the ones who survived, the elders of Israel asked, "Why did the Lord bring defeat upon us today before the Philistines? Let us bring the ark of the Lord covenant from Shiloh, so that it may go with us and save us from the hand of our enemies." So the people sent men to Shiloh, and they brought back the ark of the covenant of the Lord Almighty, who is enthroned between the cherubim. And Eli's two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, were there with the ark of the covenant of God. When the ark of the Lord covenant came into the camp, all Israel raised such a great shout that the ground shook. Hearing the uproar, the Philistines asked, "What's all the shouting in the Hebrew camp?" When they learned that the ark of the Lord has come into the camp, the Philistines were afraid. "A god has come into the camp," they said. "We're in trouble. Nothing like this has happened before. Woe to us! Who will we deliver us from the hand of the mighty gods? They are the gods who struck the Egyptians with all kinds of plagues in the desert." Even the Philistines heard about that. "Be strong, Philistines. Be men, or you will be subject to the Hebrews, as they have been to you. Be men and fight." So the Philistines fought, and the Israelites were defeated, and every man fled to his tent. The slaughter was very great. Israel lost 30,000 foot soldiers. The ark of the Lord was captured, and Eli's two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, died. Just take a note. I think the Philistines thinking the great war cry and the aggressive way of facing. It's not just that. It's just God has permitted the Philistines to beat Israel. Remember the verses in Psalm 78 about how the Israelites has abandoned their faith in the Lord and actually truly trusting, and some of them have intermarried most likely, and so they incorporate idols from other neighborhood cultures. It's kind of sad about Eli's sons dying. Anyways, death of Eli. Oh, now he's gonna. Okay. The same day, a Benjamite ran from the battle line and went to Shiloh, his clothes torn and dust on his head. When he arrived, there was Eli sitting on his chair beside the road, watching because his heart was feared for the ark of God. I wonder what kind of chair is beside the road. Okay. Okay. When the god entered the town and told what had happened, the whole town set up a cry. Okay. Eli heard the outcry and asked, "What is the meaning of this uproar?" The man hurried over to Eli, who was 98 years old, and whose eyes were set so that he could not see. I guess he's blind at this point. He told Eli, "I have just come from the battle line. I fled from it this very day." Eli asked, "What happened to my son?" I thought sons, but why one son? Because he has two sons. I guess he didn't realize two of his sons was with the ark. Okay. The man who brought the news replied, "Israel fled before the Philistines, and our army has suffered heavy losses. And also your two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, are dead, and the ark of the God has been captured." When he mentioned the ark of God, Eli fell backwards off his chair by the side of the gate. His neck was broken, and he died, for he was an old man and heavy. He had led Israel 40 years. His daughter-in-law, the wife of Phinehas, was pregnant and near the time of delivery. When she heard the news that the ark of God had been captured and that her father-in-law and her husband were dead, she went to labor and gave birth, but was overcome by her labor pains. As she was dying, the woman attending her said, "Don't despair, you have given birth to a son." But she didn't respond or pay any attention. She named the boy Ichabod, saying, "The glory has departed from Israel because of the capture of the ark of God and the death of her father-in-law and her husband." I guess she was lucid, able to name the son. She not respond or paying attention when the women that surround her help her with the birthing session. Ichabod. The glory has departed from God. What kind? Oh, the poor little baby boy having that name. Then the mother said, "The glory has departed from Israel, for the ark of God has been captured." Yeah. So sad. But also teach us a lot about trusting and believing God. Is God that vengeful about the believers, that some do struggle? It's a long life. Well, to us, it's a long life. And some of us, struggle and will sin and kind of forget and walk off and try to capture the dreams or chase after dreams in ways that are not a healthy way that the Lord would have given you. People are so impatient, so they sin to do stuff to get what they want, but when you turn back to God, He forgives you. Jesus forgives you, and then the things you ask for, some of them become blessings. But hopefully, you raise your children the right way, and your children don't repeat the sins you did. Anyways, so yeah. This is all I have today. God bless you. Bye.